We think we know the ends of great cities. We imagine them falling to the roar of siege engines, the crumbling of stone, or the slow, suffocating creep of ivy over a fallen temple. But there are ends that are sharper, quicker, and far more personal. There is a city that died not because its walls were breached, but because its heart stopped beating. A civilization extinguished not by an army, but by a single devastating lie. In the shadows of the ancient Mediterranean, where the Roman would eventually cast his eye over the vast expanse of the earth, lies the phantom memory of a queen who chose the fire over the shame, and whose passion was so powerful it was said to have cursed a lineage of emperors. This is the tragedy of Dido, the Elysian Phoenician, the woman who built a kingdom and burned it down for love. To understand the magnitude of this fall, we must first look to the rise. We are in the age of myth, bridging the gap between the fall of Troy and the rise of Rome, on the sun-bleached coasts of North Africa. Here, the Phoenicians, those master sailors of the ancient world, have established trading posts. Dido, known also as Alyssa, was not born a commoner. She was a princess of Tyre, daughter of a king whose murder by her own brother Pygmalion drove her to flee across the wine-dark sea. She arrived on the shores of what is now Tunisia with nothing but her wit, her followers, and the sacred memory of her people. And here, amidst the hostile tribes of the land, she pulled a kingdom out of the dust. Legend says she negotiated with the local king, Iarbas, who offered her as much land as could be covered by the hide of a bull. It was a ruse intended to humiliate her with a pittance. But Dido was a woman who saw the geometry of power where others saw only leather. She cut the bulla's hide into infinitesimally thin strips, stretching them out to encircle an entire hilltop. Thus was born Carthagia, the new city, a fortress of commerce and civilization rising defiantly from the earth. For years, Dido reigned as a model of the sovereign ruler, chaste, just, and fiercely protective of her young state. She turned away the marriage proposals of the African kings, claiming duty to her people as her only consort. She had survived the treachery of her brother. She had survived the exile. She had built a marvel. She believed she had conquered fate itself. But fate, in the Greek and Roman imagination, is a hunter that never truly sleeps. It comes in the form of a man. He is Aeneas, a refugee of the ruined city of Troy, fated by the gods to wander the seas until he reaches Italy to lay the foundations of the Roman Empire. He is a man carved of marble and sorrow, burdened by a destiny that is larger than his own desires. When a violent storm sent by the vengeful goddess Juno shattered his fleet and drove him ashore at Carthage, two titans of history collided. Dido, ever the pious host, welcomed the shipwrecked Trojans. She opened her granaries, feasted them at her table, and asked only to hear their story. But when Aeneas began to speak of the fall of Troy, of the night of blood and screaming Greeks, of the escape carrying his father on his back and the loss of his wife in the smoke, something broke open in Dido. She saw in him a mirror of her own exile. She saw a fellow survivor, a man of duty and weight. And then the gods intervened, as they so cruelly do. Venus, the mother of Aeneas and goddess of love, fearing for Ursona's safety in this foreign land, sent her son Cupid to infect Dido. At a hunt in the forest surrounding the city, a storm of rain drove the queen and the hero into a single cave. There, amidst the thunder and the shadows, the fatal mistake was made. Whether it was a true marriage or a moment of madness, Dido called it a marriage. She gave herself to him completely. She forgot her vows to her first husband, Sychaeus, whose ghost had guided her from Tyre. She forgot her vow to the people of Carthage to never marry a foreigner. She halted the construction of the city's walls. She neglected the harbors. She lived only for the Trojans. In her arms, Aeneas ceased to be a wandering refugee. He became a king in waiting. The rumors flew across the desert like hot wind, reaching the ears of Iarbas and the neighboring African kings. They were furious, seeing this foreigner stealing the queen who had rejected them all. It is here that the true tragedy takes hold, for Aeneas was never truly his own master. The messenger of the gods, Mercury, was sent to shake him from his lethargy. The god appeared to him, reminding him of Italy, of his son Ascanius, of the future empire that depended on his movement. Aeneas was torn. He loved Dido. He was moved by her generosity and her passion. But he was a vessel of destiny. To stay was to betray his bloodline and the command of Olympus. To leave was to murder the heart of the woman who had saved him. In the cold logic of the Roman epic, there was no choice. Aeneas ordered the fleet prepared in secret, trying to formulate a way to tell her, a way to soften the blow. But there is no soft way to kill a queen. When Dido learned of his treachery, that he planned to sail without her, that he had dared to hope she would not notice the sky of her world fell. She confronted him, and her words are the oldest and most bitter accusation in literature. She reminded him of the winter she had kept him, the men she had armed, the kingdom she had shared. She called him a traitor and a liar. She invoked the gods to witness her wrongs. But Aeneas stood like stone. He spoke the language of duty, the cold, hard rhetoric of necessity. He told her it was not his will, but the gods' command. He was leaving. He offered her words, nothing more. He offered her the memory of him. Left behind, Dido became a creature of pure, unadulterated grief. She wandered her palace like a ghost, cursing the name of Aeneas and all his race. She prayed to the dark gods of the underworld, calling for a war between their peoples forever. She constructed a funeral pyre in the inner court of her palace. It was a monument to her madness, piled high with cedar and pine, with the bed they had shared, with the sword he had left behind. She climbed the pyre, surrounded by the shadows of the night. In a final, shattering climax, she drove the Trojan sword into her chest. The blood splashed against the marble. The final sight her fading eyes beheld was not the face of her lover, but the realization of her own destruction. Her attendants found her too late. The fire, once a symbol of their love, consumed her body. The smoke rose above the walls of Carthage, a signal to the departing Trojan ships that the woman they left behind was no more. To the ancient Romans who told this story, the myth of Dido was a terrifying explanation of history. It was an etiology of hatred. Dido's curse at the moment of her death was said to echo through the centuries, explaining the legendary enmity between Carthage and Rome. She was the irrational, emotional force of the East, the other that had to be abandoned for the cool, rational project of empire. Aeneas had to leave her. He had to choose duty over desire, because Rome could not be built on the foundation of a woman's bed. She is the sacrifice demanded by fate. Yet, even as the Roman poet Virgil wrote to justify the empire, he could not help but paint Dido as one of the most tragic and human figures in all of literature. In her, we see the ruin of a great mind, a capable leader brought low by the oldest, most human vulnerability, the need to be loved. Her legacy is etched,